Welcome to the era of wearable intelligence. With Handsfree Society.
Hey, Danny. This is Matt Copley with ProGlove. I'm the VP of Channel Partnerships and Strategic Alliances here at ProGlove, and super excited to talk to you today and learn a little bit more about the config team and PreBilt. We've worked with you guys in the past and have some current projects, but want to learn more and see what we can do to define the future of how we're working with SAP and some of our tools. So why don't you take a second to kind of tell us a little bit about who Danny is, what gets you up in the morning, and then we can move into learning more about the config team.
Yeah, wicked. Lovely stuff to meet you, Matt. So I'm Danny Clark. I'm the pre-sales manager for the config team. I've been with TCT now for coming up to 8 years. Prior to that, it's been 20 plus years in supply chain, although I don't look it. 20 plus years in various different roles of distribution and manufacturing. So before I got into IT, I kind of was very grounded in operations. So I think it made a really good balance from getting into that IT, especially into SAP, and bringing that experience with it. And I guess I'd like to say it's like my secret sauce, I guess, is that having that good combination between the two, it means that I fully understand what the operations are going through because I've kind of walked it and lived it and breathed it beforehand.
Yeah, great breadth of experience there that I know that we get to benefit from. So
yeah.
Great, Danny. So as we move into the config team, I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you look at your team and kind of how you position yourselves within the market.
Yeah, so the config team are a family-run global SAP supply chain consultancy. So we've got offices in the UK and in Australia. We've been around for just over 30 years. And essentially we design, build, implement, and support SAP solutions around the world. So we've sort of diversified out into things like more product related as well. So I think we'll touch on PreBilt as we go through this conversation. But we look at how we can fix SAP solutions. So companies design and build SAP systems that are very much like their old legacy systems, and therefore they make them a bit clunky and unwieldy. And what we do is we see ourselves as expert plumbers. So we come in and we fix those leaky SAP systems and actually give the SAP solution that the clients really deserve.
Right on. So when you're, obviously we know what the config team does. You work with SAP, but what do you think makes you unique? What differentiates you from some of the other, consulting firms or SAP teams that are out there?
So what makes us unique? I think it's the people in the team, to be honest. I think they're all very similar to me in terms of how they've come through supply chain. Obviously, no one's exactly like me, but they've come through operations. So they've all got that experience before they even got into SAP or into any kind of form of IT. So again, like I said, we fully understand customers' pain points. We see ourselves as that trusted advisor. When a client comes with a problem, we've walked it, we felt it, we understand, and we can actually provide like intuitive solutions and processes that are going to help and actually make their lives a lot easier. Like I say, we thrive on innovation as well. And I think that's a really key part, is that we keep up to date with SAP. We fully understand exactly where SAP's roadmap's going and where they're taking their products. And we make sure that we stay very much in line with SAP, but we're also looking at how we can innovate beyond that as well.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. I enjoy learning about the people side of it. I think that is a big differentiator in the market. Those people that have the experience, the knowledge, that you've been there, you've kind of walked the paces, so to say, in their shoes. So it does give you some vantage point to be able to help guide those workflows and make sure that you're creating something that's going to really work for them. Yeah. So, as you look at some of the projects and some of the things that you're facing, what are some of the frustrations that you guys see, in today's, warehouses, DCs, those types of things?
Well, labor and retention is a big problem. since COVID, so since 2020 through the UK, there's been a definite decline in people going into that supply chain, so into production or into distribution, sort of warehouse type environment. And we have seen the pool that once was there isn't. And if you've got two organizations that are very close to each other, and the one is not offering a very intuitive solution, and you're making the life of the employee difficult, compared to the one down the road that actually has a really nice solution and actually sort of complements what they do, even though it might not be down to money, is that that feel good factor as well. If a customer doesn't feel it, if the operator doesn't feel it, it's quicker for them to actually jump ship and go somewhere else. And that's what we're looking at, is that the pre-built solution is to try and remove that and make it a little bit easier for them, and it's like, if you provide teams with the right tools that make their jobs like easier, faster, like less frustrations, like less knock-on effects that drive down engagement, you see a massive increase with productivity and overall engagement with the operation as well.
Sure. Yeah, we've actually seen some aging. Like, there's some statistics that show that a lot of that labor force is kind of aging out too, and so obviously the replacement of some of that aging workforce, but also the fact that aging workforce is also needing better tools to be able to do their job a little easier, like you said, like make it a little bit more intuitive for them. So we have seen that, and some statistics and some reporting that we've seen in the market.
Yeah. And we've had an example of that where we provided PreBilt to a customer, and they were used to using an old version of SAP that was a black background with red text. And because they found that the PreBilt solution was all like white screens and black text, it didn't feel right for them. So just through very simple config, we just changed the theme and gave them black screens and red text. So for them, it felt like they were using what they were comfortable with, but in the background, they were actually using a really fantastic solution. Yeah. So some of the other things as well is that poor user experience. So sort of mirroring off of that, really, is that, if tech's slow and clunky, people are very quick to ditch it. And in an SAP world, it's a real-time solution. Everything that an operator does is done in real time. And if you take that real-time element away and you start going back to paper, you start seeing the disconnect between inventory and the actual, and so operators will go to pick faces and the locations are empty and they can't actually complete the task, or deliveries are being unloaded but not yet being updated into SAP. So that means that's impacting availability for customer orders, so going into something like paper, it's a massive red flag for me. And it's something that it instantly kills productivity, and it defeats the whole point. We see in lots of organizations looking at digital transformation, and the second you revert to something like that, it kills that whole process.
Yeah, agreed.
Also, as well, it's the choosing that right piece of equipment as well. I think organizations are very sort of strict on the types of devices that they can use, and the traditional brick on a stick type device or a fork truck mount type device are very much still the solution of choice. What I want to be able to see is that customers can actually look at this. There are so many other options out there. Whether you decide to go down a vision route or a voice route or wearables route, you can choose the right kind of tech now, so you're not sort of restricted as before.
Yeah, I think that's great. There's definitely been an evolution from the brick on a stick to other, types of technology that can help their end users. And there's such a varying workforce, right? So trying to adapt to that, I think, is kind of critical to make sure you're getting the right results, and you're also retaining those employees because they're valuable.
Yeah.
So the right tech is not just about IT infrastructure, but also the end user experience, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. Thanks for sharing that. So, when you look at these, the traditional devices, you look at some of these challenges you face, how do you feel that translates to how you deploy on the shop floor?
Yeah. So, things like labor retention, if you want to keep a workforce, what we've done is we've created within the pre-built product is things like gamification. So additional ways of engaging with the operator to actually make it a bit of fun. So while they are at work, it's one of the largest amount of times that we spend, alive, we are spend at work, and it's like, if you can make it fun and enjoyable, you actually drive sort of morale and that positive feeling within the operator, and a happy workforce is a productive workforce. So simple things like that, having an intuitive product that will naturally just render to the device that they're using. It means that I'm not stuck with that traditional tiny screen and I have to use scroll bars to see what I need. It would automatically just fit to that device. That means if I am stuck with that kind of solution, I know I'm still going to get the best version of it that I can. With things around that brick on a stick type device as well, it's if you're in things like a busy work area where it's very fast paced, that's not always the best product, because there's a lot of dead time where you're picking up a device, you're scanning stuff, you put the device down, it can be easily misplaced, and sometimes those fixed keyboards aren't always the best solution as well. So you sometimes have to sacrifice that screen real estate. Small screens can also cause problems with visibility, as we mentioned, aging workforce. So it's not always the best solution for them. For me, if we think about sort of ergonomics, it's about keeping the operator in sync with their system. So, without any unnecessary system steps or distractions, the hardware and the software should complement each other. And that's what we do with PreBilt, is that it's I guess what's the word? It's it's like device agnostic, but it sort of works in harmony with any type of device that you're using, and it will just render and resize. But it gives you the ability to add things in it like vision, voice, quick configuration to wearables, etc.
Sure. Yeah, that all makes great sense. I do think that making it a little bit more fun, a little bit more enjoyable for the end user, the ergonomics play a big role in that, of just, it's something that's lighter, it's easy to use, it's easy to learn. All of those things that just make their experience a little bit better. It does, I think, create a little bit higher production and, more satisfaction within your employees, which is great. So how are tell me about some of the ways that customers are kind of overcoming pain points like this?
Well, working with companies like ProGlove, we can obviously look at where wearables can come into place. And it's like, wearables for me doesn't cover everything. I probably wouldn't unload a lorry using a wearable. That's where a traditional type device would make sense, is you've got that fixed device with a screen that's giving you all the information and barcodes to sort of unload pallets. But where wearables really sort of comes into its place for me is like that fast moving, where you need operators to have their hands free throughout the whole process without having to keep picking up and putting down a device. It could be that they're picking lots of small items really quickly, or bulky items that they just need to have both hands available. And whether that's like picking or even things like plant maintenance to a certain degree, it's using it in better ways. What we see is that we don't want to box people into a rigid solution, and that's what PreBilt can bring in terms of any different device for any different solution, makes you more agile. I've seen customers switch out like those more clunky devices for a variety of different solutions, whether it's tablets or like voice solutions, as well as combining that with wearables. And it's all about that integration. The best setups don't just collect data, they fully connect it in real time. You've got proper positive feedback back to SAP, updating their systems, allowing you to do things like robust exception handling, and that seamless connection between like the shop floor and the production and the planning teams. And that for me is where the real value like really kicks in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really good, Danny. So I really do appreciate that marriage between the software and the technology, right? It just has to be this great connection that should be playing off of each other and seamless to the end user, so that not one piece is really limiting their ability to do their job functions well and with ease. So those are some great ways to approach it. So let's moving on here. I saw an article recently from Gartner, had to do with their hype cycle, and it really talked about the priority matrix. And at the top of that matrix is AI powered wearables. and it talks about just where we are currently and where we're going, and really ProGlove and the wearable and the AI, all of that is right at the top of that priority matrix. It's pretty exciting to see where we're at. The evolution has come a long way. How do you see it?
Mm. Yeah, I think you're definitely right in terms like AI is very much the hot topic. It's everywhere. You can't move like on things on Instagram or on LinkedIn. Everyone's talking about AI. The thing that I really love about the new My from ProGlove is how you're using AI to collect like actual data about what the operator's doing. So whether they're sort of stooping or walking, or they're out that ergonomic zone, I think is really good because it's driving a positive use of the product. I also like the use of the tracking where the amount of picks are. So if an operator is repeatedly, or the whole team are picking to a location at the back of the like pick face, and it's not productive, that's driving like real-time decisions to support the operators to reduce the number of steps they're taking and actually pull the product to the front. So it means that you're picking fast and you get your efficiencies, etc. As a result of it. So that's really good, and I think that's really awesome. What we're doing with PreBilt is that we are looking at how we can use AI as an assistant more than replacing people. Is how can we assist people? So through simple prompts, a coordinator on a busy like warehouse desk, where they're managing inbounds or outbounds, they should be able to use AI to ask it a question around, say, the number of bins that are underutilized. So how many bins at, say, 10% utilization? Once you've got the list, then create the tasks to actually clear those out to create space. And that's something that typically a person would have to sit and run that themselves, and then bin by bin, pallet by pallet, create those tasks, whilst also trying to juggle the operation to keep the operation productive. So it's frustrating, it's necessary, but it does drive inefficiency into that particular function. So if you could have an AI assistant that does that for you, that's powerful. And that's kind of where we're moving. The AI solution is like, tell me reports, tell me how the operation's performing, what products haven't moved, so I can then make decisions based on that. Looking at those, say if I have a delivery that's picked and the customer's no longer going to collect it, I'd have to cancel that delivery in SAP and then create the tasks to put the stock back to the shelves. That's again someone physically doing that, punching keys onto a keyboard, and it's like, we should have AI do that. So that's kind of where we're looking at taking it. I mean, for me personally, I think AI is a bit of a worry. I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to that kind of technology, especially when you see large organizations that are replacing people with AI. I think that is why people are quite keen to understand where it's going to go and understand what is it going to actually do to them and impact them. And I think that's the part, I think I see AI as well as kind of replacing that human innovation as well. I think people are fantastic and we come up with like very crazy, unique things because we are all very crazy, unique people, whereas AI is a machine. It hasn't got that same emotional value and it won't think of things the same way people will, and I think we need to be very careful how AI gets used, in the wider world. There are some very valid case studies as well that show that people's brains are shrinking through atrophy because they're overusing AI to basically live their lives, which is ridiculous. So I think we just need to be careful. It has a place for sure. It definitely has a place, but it should be your assistant. It should be your virtual butler, but not your not replacing.
Yeah, I like the virtual butler because I agree. I think it absolutely has a place. We've seen areas where it's been a time saver, an enhancement, but it's not always built. It doesn't have all of the information. So if we go into a customer and we talk about some of these different applications where AI can be really a great tool, they're the ones that are providing the information on some of the different ways that they operate. So there's a certain contextual component there that AI doesn't grasp until we give some guidance there. But I like the virtual butler because I do think it shouldn't replace everybody, right? But it should absolutely be able to enhance, save time, improve some processes, streamline some things, like all the things that we want to do. But, we're very human centered
Mhm.
with ProGlove. So, we want to make sure that we're not replacing, but really enhancing the workflows and the information that's available to do your job, so enhancing those digital workflows, things like that. So, yeah, that's great. I sure appreciate getting your perspective. I think there's a lot of AI conversation, but I think being able to look at it realistically and kind of like say, okay, let's not go too fast and maybe take palatable steps forward to use it in ways that we can see a return on investment and really enhance our operations. So thanks for sharing. So as we kind of move back kind of into I want to circle back a little bit into the people, the workforce, user experience challenges, things like that. How do you continue to address those with the technology and what you're doing with your team?
Yeah, absolutely. As we said, fewer hands on deck. And those hands can change often. We need to give them something that's going to actually sort of make the job attractive, make it attractive to stay at that particular organization. So, it's to make it engaging and something that companies and operators are going to stick with and want to use more than anything. So that's one of the reasons why we developed the PreBilt solution. We have been designing and building mobile apps for the last sort of 10, 15 years. And originally we built apps that were specific to a particular problem. And it meant we ended up with multiple different versions of very similar apps, like goods receiving. There was like sort of 14, 15 different versions of the application originally. So when COVID happened, we actually had an opportunity to create a core product team that were just looking at that innovation and how can we actually build upon PreBilt and make it more intuitive and more obvious and more simple to use. And so we created we call 2.0 or not imaginative now when you think about it, but it is PreBilt 2.0. So this is super flexible suite of applications that we can basically turn on and off functionality, and it's all down to configuration. So when you deploy PreBilt, we're talking weeks to deploy, not months, which is typical SAP. It's many months, sometimes
that's
a year.
amazing.
We're talking just a few weeks. So it's like a fantastic solution. And then what we've also tried to do is thinking, well, if you've not got many people and people can turn over, there's a resistance to sometimes using technology, is how can we actually take away the non-value adds in a day? You're thinking if an operator on a fork truck, I'm unloading a vehicle, I have to get off to go and read the delivery note that the driver gives me. I have to go to a terminal to find my delivery number that I'm going to use to process it. So we've created innovations that actually, while I'm sat on my truck, I could do that search there and then from multiple different sources. So whether it's a delivery number, an ASN, or a purchase order or sales order, I could find the delivery that I need. So I could do that all from the truck. Then we can use things like optical character recognition as well. So we can open the camera on the device, take a photograph, then use a little tiny bit of AI to read the text. And that then tells us what the document is. So again, there's all these little tiny incremental value adds. We've also done things around task management as well. So task swiping. So we can actually swipe between the tasks. So instead of having to use an exception code to skip it or move past it, we now have loaded them all into like a virtual carousel. So the operator can just flick through and find the necessary task. So all of these things that we've done, we've looked at how we can get rid of all of those little tiny losses, those non-value adds, and provide incremental productivity gains to the client. And we're seeing fantastic returns on the investment. I mean, they're huge. We're seeing, like I say, projects that are delivered in the space of a few weeks, but an ROI that's being paid back in under a month. In some cases, and we're between a month and 6 months is like typical ROI for a PreBilt like project. So that's huge. And like I say, it's that flexible SAP solution. We take away the clunk, the overly technical elements from SAP, and we actually provide a really intuitive solution. It's real time connected to SAP. It's built in SAP, so there's no middleware or additional software to power it or run it. So it means that whether it's a defense company or it's a food and beverage company, it's all within their own firewalls. So it's super safe, super secure. And then how we make it like innovative is that we add things like direct communication, so like text message capability, so we can message from the operation directly to the guys and gals on the shop floor, and they can message back. And then we've also added things like Teams integration, so they can message to people on Teams, and people on Teams can message them as well. So that's outside of SAP, and we can add comms. And to make it fun is we've also added gamification. And gamification's kind of like, I think, everywhere now. I think and the generation that is in supply chain is very much that sort of 30 to 45 kind of sweet spot of gamers as well. So everyone's quite used to gamification of some sort. So having that in a product, it just drives productivity, drives engagement, and sort of boosts morale and efficiency with the operators.
That's fantastic. I honestly, PreBilt is, I don't use this very often, but it's like a no-brainer. Seriously, the time to deploy, the return on investment, there's very little risk involved in something like this, right? That you have so much upside with the user experience, the incremental gains that you're talking about, even if they're small, over a large scale, that produces some pretty great results. But I just, when you look at what you guys have done with your product and PreBilt, it's just fascinating that you can get up that quickly and then also be able to produce that type of result so quickly, which I think that's what companies are always trying to find, where those gains are. And this is something that really gives them very little risk and such great upside. So that's awesome. Appreciate you sharing about PreBilt. Such a great solution. So as you look at, what you're doing with the config team, how do you look at how this works well with ProGlove and the partnership that we share?
Brilliant. So for me, we're solving problems from both ends. So the config team brings the digital workflow expertise and that SAP expertise. And then with ProGlove, you're delivering that hardware solution that's smart, it's lightweight, and it's built for the front line, which is really important. Together, we're not just providing that integrated tech, we're designing solutions that fit the way that people actually work. And I think that's what we touched on earlier, this is the type of solutions that are right for those types of activities. If we take a recent deployment as an example with a global beverage company, is that they were looking to replace aging voice tech, and they approached the config team because they knew that we could integrate voice directly into PreBilt. They needed to replace that old technology really quickly because it was sort of out of warranty and it wasn't being supported anymore. And that's where we then introduced ProGlove as an opportunity of how we could pair our solution with what they needed for their workflow. And essentially that was it. It was like fast paced, like they needed hands-free type processes, and it was removing people from that old technology. And in some warehouses they were reverting to paper, so it was bringing them off those old solutions and actually into the 21st century. I think what makes the alliance work so well is that we've got that shared mindset. We're not just pushing like a rip and replace. We're focused on those incremental gains, and because we're constantly learning from each of these deployments that we're doing, I think we're able to like innovate quickly and deliver with like one combined voice, which ultimately customers really value.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I really do value the partnership, and we've had some nice wins that really do show how the technology that ProGlove offers and the frontline worker, the human experience, along with making it easier with the software piece, right? And PreBilt really does a great job of kind of marrying that solution and making it really easy for the end user and for the organization to get up and running with a solution that's really going to affect their operation in a very positive way. So that's great. So as we move forward here, kind of how do you look at the future state of the roadmap and emerging tech? What are your thoughts? The AI, I know we've talked about a little bit, but kind of share your thoughts a little bit on the future.
Yeah, so I mean, one massive success for the config team is that we've now got PreBilt in at the SAP innovation centers in 2 countries. So we've got one in the Waldorf S factory in Germany, and then the others in Newtown, Philadelphia. and we've got many more that are in scope as well for future deployments. So we've now got a roadmap of how we're going to deliver that into SAP themselves. That's a huge win. The fact that customers are seeing PreBilt now when they go to one of those experience centers. So it's just showing that synergy between the two products. I think it's absolutely fantastic. For me as well, the SAP landscape is something that's constantly changing. I think people sort of see SAP and just think, oh, it's just that warehousing tool, and it's just like, oh, it's not as great as some of the other products that are out there. But I think what they don't understand is actually SAP is huge. What it covers is every aspect and facet of supply chain and distribution, manufacturing, transportation planning, everything. It's everything you could think of. SAP has it in its network, which means it's actually a fantastic product. In terms of what it can deliver is huge, and they're looking at how they can innovate as well. So adding things like public cloud. There's different versions, obviously, of SAP, and one is this public cloud solution, and it's a very rigid in terms of what the mobile solution is. It's you have to really pretty much just take the standard SAP solution. But what we've done is we've actually innovated PreBilt now into public cloud, which means that organizations now have the ability to take something really innovative and that's going to support their future growth on that public cloud environment. And we've got a customer that's due to go live in like January of 2026. We're really looking forward to that. The product team have developed a fantastic solution, and we're having a great time deploying with those with that company. So we're really looking forward to that. They've also as well, there are other versions of SAP, with the EWM, so extended warehouse management. They've also got one that's just standard warehouse management. It's looking at how that can combine and move to the latest and greatest. So again, we work very closely with SAP. We understand, we support in testing new releases of product. So we can understand where they're going and how TCT can develop and actually bring that into the product. PreBilt continues to grow and develop. Like as we've mentioned, AI is going to definitely feature heavily in that roadmap, as that virtual assistant type sort of solution, maybe even having it on device one day where you can ask it a prompt, even maybe a training like solution. So if I have a query, I could ask AI and use it as more of a virtual prompt. So we're looking at how we can enhance that functionality. PreBilt as well just works with every known device, whether that's wearables, handhelds, like vision systems, voice systems. We support all of the different like hardware companies as well as also supporting like Android, Apple, Windows operating systems. So you really give that full flexibility of type of solutions you could have. So yeah, it's an exciting time. And obviously looking at where we're taking the product, I think innovation is going to always play a key part with the Copley team.
For sure. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that project goes that you're launching in January. You have to tell me how that ends up working out for you. I agree. SAP is such a great tool set, and it is very robust. And I've heard great things, and I've also heard that some of the deployments can take a little longer than what sometimes they anticipate. But at the end of the day, it seems like you guys have really done a good job of kind of condensing that and making it a lot simpler. Obviously, your deployment, and also just making sure that you're able to leverage those different tool sets in a way that makes it a little simplified for the end user, which I think is it's super powerful because the tool is powerful. SAP is just it's a very powerful tool set, and to be able to simplify that so that the end user can really get the most out of that tool is amazing. So I think you've done a great job there, and I do agree that there's constant innovation, and there's always adapting to the end user or the customer needs ultimately, right? I mean, every warehouse that we walk into, there's these different sets of how they do business and how they want to really leverage their infrastructure and their tools to really make the most out of their operation. And so it's always changing and it's always developing. And so it's great to be working with you to really solve some of these challenges and make sure that we're giving them the best experience possible. So I'm excited about this partnership. So as we're moving forward here, can you tell me a little bit about kind of the your closing thoughts, call to action, kind of what would you like to see as a result of this? I've honestly really learned a lot about you, Danny, and PreBilt. This relationship has been really strong for us, and we're really excited to be able to partner with you on the opportunities to help our shared customers. So, kind of, what are your thoughts here as we kind of wrap things up?
Okay. So one for me is that SAP are very much driving something called clean core. So clean core means reducing the amount of customizations or the level of customizations you make to your operating system, so that when there is an upgrade or an update from SAP, is that it's not such a chore to implement it and deploy it into your system. So PreBilt is a SAP certified product, and it mirrors that same clean core approach. So we're not interfering with the core code, so it means longevity wise, it makes sense to deploy a clean core solution into your system and to introduce something like PreBilt, because it isn't going to interface or replace or damage anything that you've got built into your system. A key part as well is, I would say, organizations don't get stuck on traditional devices. Have the freedom to actually look around and see what is out there. There are so many technological solutions that will give you those productivity gains, and you shouldn't be looking at one device fits all. Be brave and actually choose devices that are going to work for your operator, work for your operations, give you those efficiency gains, and actually protect you for the future. Make you resilient in times of pandemic or times where there's another ship blocking the Suez Canal. It's like all of those things. It gives you that resilience to actually be stronger and sort of like ride the storm if it ever happens again. We do see that trend right now of AI. And I would recommend organizations start looking at it and what it can do for you. How could you practically apply it? Talk to the config team. We're quite happy to have conversations around what we're doing with AI, but also if you've got use cases that you would want us to address, then that's something we could talk through. The product is really gaining traction, so I would say if you want to get on board, it's a good time to do that. I think the part for me is around, so we should be focusing on our operators, giving them the best experience that we can do, and I think, not being stuck to just a traditional type of device, I think is super important.
Right on. So just to clarify, so like an ideal customer is a current SAP user generally?
Yeah, I mean, it can be. Yeah, so whether you're using SAP and you're on older legacy versions of SAP, so we support, in a product perspective, it's called ECC6. So it's an older version of SAP. On R3 is the platform. So that typically is what we've go as far back to, but we support all the way up to the very latest releases of S4HANA. And I think whatever the last operating system that was the last update that was handed out, we're fully certified up to that. So yeah, we can support any of those. And I'd say we offer various different solutions as well. So it's not just the PreBilt mobility solution. If you just want to talk around like system health checks, that's something we can also do as well. You might have that leaky system that isn't working correctly, and I'd say that we can come in and provide you with advice on how to rectify it and how to get the most out of your SAP system. And if you're looking for support, that's also something, whether it's an hour bank or it's you want to just let us look after your upgrades, or you're just looking after your SAP system, that's something we would be more than happy to discuss as well.
All right. So how does an engagement typically start from that standpoint? So if it's ProGlove or customer, what is that typical initiation for an engagement? Do you have a kind of setup call or kind of a consultation, or kind of what is the first step?
Yeah, I mean, there's our website's pretty fantastic, so you can drop inquiries onto those. I mean, typical engagement, it would come through to our sales team, and we would obviously direct you in the right way. But if it's like consultancy, there's things where I regularly go on site for customers and look at their systems and see where we can make like improvements for them, and actually where we can support them. Not always is it product. Sometimes it is just purely a piece of configuration that they've got wrong or it isn't working as it should be. We can advise how to rectify it and sort it.
Great. Yeah, that's wonderful. Danny, it's been great speaking with you, learning more about you again, and as well as the config team and PreBilt. I think a couple of my big takeaways personally is just I love the people element. It's just something it's important for us. The experience that you and your team have to bring value instantly to a customer. The ability to get ramped up quickly, the deployment time, the results that you see so quickly, it really does reduce the risk for an operations manager to say, hey, we need to really make our tools work a little bit better. And how do we optimize, and how do we continue to push the envelope on like innovation and that roadmap that not just us, we all talk about our roadmaps and where we want to go, but the customer has that same type of like, okay, this is a current state and this is the future state. How do we get there? And something like PreBilt is a great tool to insert into that will give them a pretty immediate results and return on investment. So, and then, just the marriage, like we've talked about, between the technology pieces and the software and how those work together, I think is critical. We're very focused on that human-centered design, the end user, the frontline worker. We're very passionate about it, right? So how can we make sure that experience is a happy one? It's an easy one. It's something that is enjoyable. It's something that giving them the right set of tools and the workflows that just make their job easier. It's employee retention. It's easier to train. It's easier for them to get their own KPIs. I mean, they all have KPIs that they need to meet to make sure that they're doing their job function well. And between the two of us, I think we really do create a great opportunity for our customers to really enhance that experience for their end users. So a lot of great takeaways from today. Appreciate you hopping on and look forward to working with you. Let me know how that project goes in January.
Yeah, will do. Thanks very much, Matt. It's been great to meet you.
All right. Thanks, Danny. Have a great day.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Welcome to the era of wearable intelligence. With Handsfree Society.